Hello everyone, my name is Galina and I'm extremely honored to be here virtually with you today. And I would like to thank the organizing committee of the conference for this kind invitation. I'm also a little bit sad that I cannot be there with you in person, but hopefully for the next conference. Today, I would like to present to you my presentation on neutrality, decoding genderless fashion for the upheld sustainability of fashion. I will start with the bigger picture. We live in a fast forward moving world where traditions and customs in fashion are unstitched. Designers and manufacturers are from all over the world are no longer producing 2 collections per year, but 120 in an urge of producing more than it's needed. Fashion is one of the most innovative fields and one of the most attractive as well, but has its hidden sides. Fashion became the second most polluting after the oil industry. And to put this in perspective, the industry became belches 1.2 billion tons of carbon emissions, which is equivalent per year more emissions than the shipping and aviation industry combined. Not only synthetics, but also cotton, it's less than ideal because produces carbon emissions as well. Cotton requires a lot of water and fertilizers, with estimated for 1 ton fertilizer then produce 7 tons of carbon emissions. If we continue to live like that, we will increase the pollution up to 4 more times by the year of 2030, which means that we might need to look for another planet based on the MIT predictions, unless we do changes. And changes are already happening. There are initiatives in different parts of the fashion industry. For example, circular economy, sustainable design approach, or slow fashion philosophy. In the slow fashion philosophy, each one of us can adapt it anytime, anywhere. We can buy less, we can direct clothes, we can take care of them, and we can embrace genderless fashion. Trends came and go, but androgynous or gender fluid clothing trend is here to stay, at least for now. As fashion movement, genderless fashion, it's gradually making its way into the mainstream culture. Acceptance, inclusivity, and openness to change are fashion's gift for the 2021. This year it's predicted to be all about reinvention and the genderless movement. Although one can argue that celebrity androgyny can be traced as far back as the 1930s, with Marlene Dietrich wearing the men's suit and Katharine Hepburn, and in the 70s with Diane Keaton or David Bowie wearing very feminine clothing. Today, celebrities like Harry Styles, Tilda Swinton, and Jared Leto are really pushing the envelope. After all, inclusivity is the new buzzwords. And what is gender fluid clothing? Gender fluid clothing or gender inclusive clothing can be any clothing in theory, stated Nick Page, a senior analyst of WGSN, a global trend forecasting company that analyzes consumer shopping behavior. The notion that clothing as an expression of our personality belongs to one gender or another is the social construct that needs dissembling. As our social climate constantly changes and shifts, so too does the way we dress. Fashion has always been influenced by the conversations circulating the masses, and now it's no different. Now the new millennials and the gender Z, like all preceding generations with youthful influence, the main objectives that has been breaking previously established social norms. And what better way to do so than through the personal expression afforded to us via fashion. In this presentation, I will touch on what is gender fluid clothing and brief history and why in this capsule collection that I'm going to present, I'm using Kanta textile, and why unisex clothing is the future of sustainable fashion that strives for positive social change throughout advocacy, community, and cultural awareness. A brief history of unisex fashion. The term gender began to be used to describe the social and cultural aspect of biological sex in the 1950s, a tacit acknowledgement that one's sex and one's gender might not match up neatly. The unisex clothing of the 1960s and 70s aspired to blur or cross gender lines. Ultimately, however, it delivered uniformity with masculine tilts and fashion's brief flirtation with gender neutrality led to a stylistic whip splash of more obviously gendered clothing for women and children beginning in the 1980s. As far as the American fashion industry was concerned, the unisex movement came and largely went in one year, and the year was 1968. The trend began on the Paris runways where designers like Pierre Cardin, André Courrèges, and Paco Rabanne conjured up with egalitarian space age or sleek, simple silhouettes, graphic patterns, and new synthetic fabrics with no historical gender association. As women burned their bras symbolically, if not literally, United States department stores created special sections for unisex fashions, though most of them had closed by 1969. But their impact could be felt for decades. And to mention one of the greatest designers of this time, Rudy Kernwig, and here in this slide, you can see his unisex approaches about bathing suits, clothing, and dance costumes. How the academia responds to this new approach? In academics, the teaching methods are rapidly shifting to reflect student interest, values, and purpose. There are schools, even the school here in Arizona State University, the School of Fashion, was conceived based on the students' needs. And students here are also very open for inclusiveness. And inclusiveness, again, it's the buzzword not only in fashion, but politically and economically. So let's look at some of the responses from the different and the good schools, one of the best schools in the world. So Zoe Broch had a fashion at the Royal College of Art in London stated that gender is way more nuanced than the way it is presented in the mainstream, and how today's students describe, build, and explore their gender is not genderless nor unisex. It is their very sense of self, which is very true. Students are themselves. They dress for themselves, and that's their message. They feel free and they feel inspired to wear either a dress or a pants or a jacket. It's just fashion as a language. For example, a master's program graduate named Cecile Kernescock called their collection Human Wear, and stress that the things to be aware of is that this moment of inclusion doesn't become a trend because it is solution. So that's very important to pay attention to those very strong messages that young people are spreading across the world. The students are approaching their work this way because it is fundamentally part of how they see the world. As a design institution, we are evolving our curriculum and language to meet our students' expectations. It starts with simple changes. It is fashion design, no matter what gender. Right now, the pathways are labeled gender specific, but as we change, so do the designated titles. About a third of its students who describe their design as fluid. Amy Sperber, assistant professor of fashion design at the Fashion Institute of Technology, said. And what about the consumers? How we can reflect on their opinions? And here, there are three categories that we can analyze based on the consumer's reflection. It's more functional. Unisex clothing is more functional because anyone can wear it and anyone looks great in it. Since outfits are less likely to have patterns, they're easier to pair with different attire. Consequently, sharing or donating clothing also becomes easier since it's not gender specific. And when it comes to kids' clothes, unisex clothing doesn't put them into categories. Instead, children can explore various clothing options without having too many choices. The next, it's more cost effective. Definitely, since genderless clothing is more functional, it only makes sense that it's also cheaper in the long run. Unisex clothing is popular because it saves money. Adults can share their clothing with friends or partners, and parents can keep children's clothing for further hand-me-downs. When you buy clothing, both for yourself and your children, sustainability is key because throwing clothing away is wasteful. And then the third one, designs are more open. Creating outfits becomes way more fun when you're wearing unisex clothing. A big part of fashion is self-expression, and you can easily do that when clothing isn't gender specific. Unisex clothing is the future of sustainable fashion that allow the wearer to build the perfect capsule wardrobe for themselves with the clothes that last. So those reflections are very meaningful and influential. They definitely influence my vision for my new collection. Here is the methodology for the capsule collection using Kanta textile, zero waste patterns, and fluid fits. Why Kanta? In the beginning of 2020, in January, I went for a conference in Jaipur where I came across those beautiful blankets stitched by hand. And I learned that Kanta, meaning it's patched cloth, refers to both the tradition and producing those unique quilted blankets, making something useful and beautiful out of discarded items, as well as the craft and stitch itself, a small straight running stitch in Bengali embroidery. For as many as 500 centuries, poor Bengali women have taken their discarded clothes, scraps, and sewn them together with a simple running stitch, taking the old and repurposing into something useful and protective. Far from trend-setting or even artfulness, Kanta was created originally for the most basic and practical purposes, to keep warm. Over time, Kanta developed as a generational skill, a craft that could symbolically impart story, desire, and well-wishing for loved ones and gift recipients. Elaborate kanta were made as wedding gifts or gifts for mothers, with stories and wishes weaved in, allowing literate women to leave a lasting mark. And because of that, I thought that this collection, neutrality, will be perfectly made with Kanta materials. The birth of neutrality became during the lockdown in 2020 in Singapore, where we were connected and we became one, the whole world, everyone, young and old, rich and poor, all wearing the mask, all being wrapped with blankets, seeking the warmth and looking for something new, something that gives new life. And I thought, Kanta, it's the perfect textile that can, with the perfect meaning, that can bring beautiful message to the world. And in addition to that, that openness, that fluid embracement was something that I thought I would like to incorporate in this collection. It was difficult to cut those beautiful blankets, so I started to think about patterns that can utilize the whole entire blanket, or using the blanket itself being folded into a beautiful folds or origami folds to create a skirt or a top, or very organic folds using different snap, different methods to collapse the garment and to reshape it into a different look. The zero waste patterns were very intriguing. I was very carefully cutting edges of the materials so they can later on become long elaborated sleeves or neck pieces or head pieces. And in addition to that, for the feet, every single feet is so fluid, it's very comfortable, and in the same time, it's modular and transformable. For instance, the red lined jacket could be transformed into a small vest a jacket with sleeves, or a long coat. Everything, it's built on snaps and it is removable. So the fluid fit allowed male or female to enjoy the comfort of the garments. And not only looking for gender inclusiveness, but looking into the different textiles that I use, I thought it's also culturally inclusiveness. And being in Singapore at that time, living together with people from different nationalities, that they're put together into one roof, one umbrella called Singapore, I thought is the perfect metaphor. So this collection further on was used for a video called Interwoven Cultures, using weaving a textile as a metaphor for inclusiveness and interwoven way of living. So I will switch now my screen and I would like to show you my video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much again for the opportunity, and I'm wishing you a wonderful day. If you have any questions, please email me. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.